Welcome to the Recruitment Leadership Podcast, hosted by Alison Humphries. The Recruitment Leadership Podcast is here to help those in the recruitment industry gain awareness and understanding on the hot topics faced by those in the business of hiring people. In each episode, Alison Humphries is joined by a fellow expert to offer professional knowledge, insight and advice on the biggest subjects affecting recruitment businesses. It's the podcast to listen to for recruitment business frontrunners seeking expert information from industry-leading advisors. Welcome to the Recruitment Leadership Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Recruitment Leadership Podcast. This is your host, Alison Humphries, and I'm really pleased to be joined today by a client of mine who's been enjoying extraordinary success, Mike Tann, who is Director of Select Offshore and Select Tech. And we're going to focus today on his work with Select Offshore. There's a very interesting story there about how he's achieved 50% growth and managed to garner awards through what has been a very difficult time for some agencies, but has been a very successful one for him. So Mike, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Hello.
I think it would be helpful for our listeners to hear some context about the business. So a little bit, if you would, some background about yourself, the history of the business, and in particular, how your market sector in Select Offshore is very different to, for example, placing people at office professionals. So if we can take those one by one, let's start with you, how you came to be doing this.
Yeah, so I'm Mike Tann, co-founder of Select Offshore. We are an offshore recruitment agency that focus on three sectors of the offshore energy industry. So we cater for marine crew, basically the people that work on the ships. We cater for subsea, that is effectively everything that happens under the surface. And we also cater for the project crew that install the offshore wind farms. I co-founded the business with my friend Ryan, and we were at school together, so we've known each other from a young age, and we established business in 2013.
Fantastic. Okay. And just to give some metrics, how many contractors roughly do you have out across those three divisions at any one time, and how many heads do you employ?
Yes, it's very seasonal, our business. So typically it can be anything at the moment from, I think we're at 140 a month up to a height of around 180. So different sectors, I suppose, have more seasonality to them than others. Offshore wind farm construction, for instance, picks up quite heavily in the summer. So we really peak at that point.
Right. Okay. Now, for people who've perhaps grown up, placing finance staff into office jobs, there's a lot to learn. And even when I started working with you, there was a lot for me to pick up about what was different and special about this industry. So just thinking about areas like compliance, working patterns, and the international nature of the business, can you just outline some of the things that perhaps might not be obvious to lots of recruiters?
Yeah, I was actually fortunate enough to do a couple of years in the Middle East myself in the oil industry. So in that industry, you work on rotation. So it could be anything from a 2-week trip to a 9-week trip. And during that period, you're on board a vessel or on a rig and you work for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then you come home and you've got all that time at home to enjoy. So it's a very fast moving contract market. We're 97% contract, and it's all about redeployment of the contractors. It's about getting the same clients with similar vessels and having as many opportunities for your guys and girls as possible.
It's also quite compliance heavy, isn't it? Because you've got these people working offshore. So there are a whole series of processes that you have to go through after you've engaged a candidate's interest. So off the top of your head, just roughly how many pieces of compliance do you need to put a candidate through before you can actually get their timesheet?
In the marine business, which is probably where it's most prominent, we are something called MLC certified. And basically that looks out for the welfare of the seafarers, but also make sure that you're doing everything correct on a compliant point of view. So, for instance, your typical officer on the bridge might have 20 certificates that they need. You need to make sure they're all up to date. You need to make sure that they're all valid, they're all real. And sometimes it even differs depending on the sector that you're working in or the flagship of the vessel. It's, to be honest, it seems easy now because we've got all the processes in place, but that is the most challenging sort of aspect of our industry, is actually learning that process and making sure that you're keeping track and keeping up to date.
Yes, it is constantly changing, isn't it? And your contractor workforce is truly international. So even if you've got UK nationals, they may not be UK resident. Am I right?
Yeah, we've got Latvian personnel, we've got Lithuanians, we've got Polish, we've got Croatian. Basically, every European nationality you can think of, we employ, and we also cater for projects globally as well. So we've got candidates working in Thailand and Indonesia at the moment, and that is the real challenge. It's not only the compliance, it's the time difference, it's the nationality of the crew, dealing with different currencies. You really have to, we joke that we're professional problem solvers, because to be good in our industry, you're constantly solving a problem.
And you had quite a lot to solve in 2020. So suddenly you had contractors, but it was really difficult to get them to the assignments on offshore. Yeah. Now you've been successful in winning, let me get this, the Queen's Award for Enterprise, Recruitment Agency of the Year from Recruiter, and just recently, COVID-19 Champion. So please share, what did you do to deserve these awards?
Yeah, do you know what? It's the first time we've kind of felt worthy to apply to these types of awards. So the first one we entered was the Queen's Award, and I think they've got 3 categories: innovation, sustainable development, and international trade. And to be eligible, you need to have a certain percentage of your business as export, and I think we're at 95%, even more than that for those 3 years. And we grew around 60% a year for that 3-year period that we use the accounts for. So yeah, fortunate enough to be shortlisted. I've read the stats, and I think only 7,000 odd companies have won that award since its inception. So,
which was what, 1960s or something, was it?
Yeah, it was a long time ago. To be honest, I don't know the ins and outs, but it was a real proud moment for us. I think we hadn't heard of the awards before, but now we've got the logo. We notice it everywhere. So you see it on the back of a Waitrose van, for example, and you're like, oh, look, there's the Queen's Award logo. So it's just, I guess, one of those things. But no, really proud moment. COVID did hinder the celebrations a bit. Normally you would go to Buckingham Palace and 2 representatives from your work would be able to visit members of the royal family, and we did manage to sort of celebrate in a way. I say, but we ended up at Windsor Castle, and there's only one person from the company, so yeah, it was a bit of a shame that me and Ryan couldn't go together. I think that was. But I managed to, get there and meet Prince Charles and some of the other members of the royal family. So it was great. It was interesting to see the different types of businesses that were there. I mean, we were the only recruitment agency that were there, but yeah, it was a vast list of random companies.
And then obviously the 2 recruitment industry awards that you've won. What were the major factors in you being successful there?
Yeah, I think the COVID champion, in 2020, it got to around April time, maybe May, and we had a number of contractors that were working on assignments in Trinidad and Tobago. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but the country closed their borders. And it was probably the most stringent closing of the borders that I'd heard of, because they wouldn't even let their own nationals return in a lot of circumstances. So we knew we had to adapt, and we knew how big the oil and gas industry and the maritime industry is in Trinidad. So we had to think of a way that we could actually make these crew changes happen. So we, through our Queen's Award, actually, we made some contacts in the region, and through a local agency there, we, in partnership with some clients that we'd identified with vessels in the country, we built relationships with the Ministry of National Security, and essentially we got the approval to run monthly charter flights in and out of the country to complete our crew changes. So yeah, it was a big, to be honest, it was a big achievement for us, because we're a small business, and I think it definitely pushed ourselves and pushed the limits of us as individuals, definitely took us out of our comfort zone in a lot of circumstances. But it was great. It was great fun. We had to go through a whole process and put together a quarantine. So we set up quarantine in Amsterdam, and two of the young guys volunteered. They wanted to go out there and help set it up. So they went out there and identified some hotel apartments where we could cater for the requirements of the ministry. And we carried out a testing schedule there. We carried out temperature testing and everything. So eventually we put together essentially a crew change package that was signed off by BP, signed off by Shell in the region, and then eventually the Ministry of National Security ticked a box, and we were able to operate these charter flights. So yeah, we started to do that on a monthly basis, and it was, I mean, naturally it was really popular, because it's dangerous to have people on a ship working 12 hours a day for a long period of time. So yeah, it was a big milestone for us as a business.
Yeah, and I have to say, because obviously we were working together at the time, that the speed with which you managed to get these things organised when the world was shut down was extraordinary. And moving to chartering flights wasn't just a sort of an alternative to recruitment. You actually managed to engage new clients and contractors as a result of it, didn't you?
Yeah, definitely. Some of the younger guys in the team, they've built some very, very strong relationships with clients off the back of this. I think naturally, if you're helping someone to the level that we managed to, and it was, a lot of it was luck. I'm not putting it down to we identified that, we're going to go after Trinidad charter flights. It was a client coming to us with a problem, and we managed to find a solution. And I think a lot of them just liked that, and it's been great for us, because everyone that we work with on the charter flights that we weren't already doing business with on recruitment, we're now working with on a recruitment basis. So yeah, it's been really good.
But obviously that was a major, the organising of transport and isolation and all the rest of it was a huge factor in you winning the COVID-19 champion as awarded by Recruiter just last week. So well done. So you and I have been working together now for just over 2 years, I think. You've had an extraordinary period of growth, and of course you've got ambitious plans to hire considerably more of your own staff this year as well. Can we just go back to, why did you decide to look for potentially a non-exec director or board advisor? What made you think that would be useful?
Yeah, I think the nature of our business, I mentioned Ryan earlier on in the call, and we founded the business together, and around 5 years ago now, so a little bit after we started Select Offshore, we established Select Tech that you mentioned, and Ryan's involvement shifted from Select Offshore to Select Tech, and he runs that with someone else that we're really close to as well, actually, and it kind of left me on my own a little bit, trying to run this business by myself. And I definitely realised I needed the support of someone at a similar level to myself, and really just someone that I could lean on when Ryan's busy with his own day-to-day operations and growth of that company. I could just keep my focus in one business and keep my focus with what's in front of me.
And what was on your shopping list when you went out to market? What did you actually look for?
Yeah, do you know what? We actually got put in touch with yourself. I listened to a podcast, and Alex Elliott, obviously who you used to work with at Liquid, was on the podcast, and he very kindly agreed to meet with ourselves, because we were going through a stage where the financials were looking really, really good for our business, but we didn't really have the structure in place that would allow us to continue on that trajectory. So he put us in touch with yourself, and we wanted to speak to someone that or worked with someone that had been at an MD level and had experience running a company and had taken that company through a real impressive short-term period of growth, which you had achieved at Liquid.
So in terms of your business, just off the top of your head, for the benefit of our listeners, can you explain what some of the benefits of that working relationship have been?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's simple things, getting the confidence to actually spend money on areas that don't actually make money. That was our biggest transition. I mean, having the confidence to get an office manager in and have a full-time team for compliance, invest a lot into our payroll and our back office, are not things that I suppose, afraid of, but it just gave you the confidence that you weren't wasting money, and every sort of penny you were spending was being ticked off and verified by someone that had not only been there and done it themselves, but at multiple different times in their career. So you're almost paying to learn from someone else's mistakes in a way, and it's really just gaining that expertise and knowledge that we were looking for.
Okay, thank you. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you have ambitious plans for this year. You've started the process of a whole marketing revamp, which I'm sure some listeners will be interested to follow when the new website hits and your marketing comms. And there's a lot of other expansion in terms of headcount, customer base, and so forth. One of the biggest stumbling blocks that many recruitment business owners face at this stage is not being able to attract the right talent. And for many, they hit a ceiling and just find they're constantly then replacing. So when you go out to recruit your own staff, what do you look for? And what would you say is your employer proposition?
I think for us, I mean, we budgeted to hire around 20 people across both businesses this year. So that in itself is quite ambitious. We look for individuals that are highly competitive, that have a bit of an entrepreneurial flair. I mean, given the nature of our business, you need to try and spot other opportunities to make money or to progress within our market. And we definitely look for people that want to collaborate and work as a team. It's so important, and that's something that we found difficult, more challenging during COVID, because it's such a fast-paced contract market that being on the same desk is so beneficial to your business that having to start Teams calls 20 times throughout the day was just proving almost too much. So, yeah, basically team players, highly competitive individuals with a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit is what we look out for.
And I would add the ability to work at considerable pace, because it is fast, your market, isn't it? Okay, so we've been doing some work on developing your employer proposition, because everybody wants to recruit people like you, the ones you've just described. And you've tended to recruit from outside the industry on the whole, but you now have a mixture, don't you, of some people who had some prior recruitment experience. Tell me what you've done to make yourself an attractive employer.
I mean, look, everyone's got a table tennis table and a coffee machine and put duvet days on their website. So I think the recruitment industry is full of that kind of information, which we do as well. I think for us, the real differentiator, I mean, we've taken someone from apprentice level up to earning over £100,000 a year for himself last year. I think historically we haven't offered the most structured training, but now that's in process with the help of yourself. So we offered a structured training program, a structured career plan with different tiers that can allow you to progress through the ranks before your end of year appraisal. We're very hands-on as owners and managers, and I think for us it's no greater achievement than getting someone to actually get their billings up to a level that you can see they're excited about. So I'm just trying to think the last person that actually left our company. We don't have a high turnover of staff at all. We really are. It's not like a family here, but it's like a competitive sports team where everyone is very friendly. Everyone's very friendly all the time, but it's very competitive, and I guess there's a high level of intensity throughout the days, and then after work, everyone's genuinely friends as well, which helps. I think you need to have that kind of collaboration to do well in this market, and that's something that we provide.
And it's an interesting point, isn't it, that so many recruitment business owners will talk hypothetically or in the abstract about people being able to earn a lot of money, but your response is actually about the joy, the fun of doing the job, as well as the money, yeah, and having a clear path and people who you can actually show have gone from, as you say, from being apprentices to six-figure earnings. Gives people a lot of confidence that they could do that too, doesn't it? And I think we do, as an industry, we do ourselves a disservice where people overquote what people are going to earn without being able to back it up. So you've also introduced a whole range of staff policies. We've got, some enhanced some parental leave, and we have a work from anywhere policy, and so there's a number of those things, but actually it is about the job itself being fun environment, isn't it? Because it can be pressurized, and if you don't have a bigger purpose for doing that, then a lot of people throw in the towel. Now, this series of podcasts, the linking factor, if you will, is about finding, engaging, and retaining candidates, which is a challenge for everybody. We've already heard on other episodes from experts on marketing, diversity, tech perspectives. I know that you've had considerable success with referrals of candidates and redeploying your contractors. Now, without giving away anything confidential, what would your top 3 pieces of advice be for finding and keeping candidates?
Yeah, so I was obviously quite fortunate to work in the oil industry before on rotation. So I experienced, I guess, some issues with contracting in that market. And one of the big ones was, I always remember this because I tell everyone about it and come back to it because it helps everyone understand what the contractors are going through. So I basically flew out to Saudi Arabia. I arrived there and no one was there to greet me. I didn't have any information. The company weren't answering the phone, so I waited at the airport for three or 4 hours. Eventually, someone came along with a little placard saying Mike Tann. So got in his taxi, got dropped off at a random hotel, really late at night, and I managed to get to sleep for a couple of hours or a few hours before I had to wake up because I didn't have any information about who was coming to get me the next day. So anyway, I was in the hotel lobby at 5 a.m. the next day, and I just sat there. They still weren't answering their phone, so I just sat there and waited. Eventually fell asleep, and no one turned up. So I did the same the next day, and someone eventually came and picked me up. And yeah, it's a really random situation, but I always think back to it because it just shows you how important it is to communicate with your contractors and also like overshare of information. So just making them feel as organized and as comfortable as they can. Bearing in mind, a lot of these people are flying around the world at the drop of a hat. You can call someone up today. I mean, COVID's changed it a little bit, but still it's quick. Call someone up today saying, will you fly tomorrow to Brazil? And they'll just do it. They might never have worked for that client before. We might never have worked for that client before. So it's just about providing them with the information that they feel like they're not alone when they arrive out there, and it's giving them that extra support that you need when you're being sent on an assignment. So
that's really important in retaining people. What about attracting candidates and getting referrals? What do you do well?
I think you've got to add value before you expect someone to add value to you. You need to try and add value to them. So it might be the case that you give them free information, free market info. It could be that you give them information on a job that you don't actually currently have, but you know that would be perfect for them. Because at the end of the day, a lot of these contracts are so short that if you do something for an individual that helps them out, they will remember it. I mean, we've been in situations before where some of my closest contractors, if they've come to me and they said, I've got this job opportunity and I think it's better than the job opportunity I've got, I will outright tell them, just look, go for that rotation, go away for 4 weeks, and then we'll find you your next one. So, and I think if they've got that trust in you, when you are selling them an opportunity, they know that it is the right one for them, because you've kind of gained that level of trust.
Thank you. Now, we've mentioned several times that you're expanding significantly. For anybody who's interested, Mike's business is based in Essex. And would it be fair to say you're keen to hear from people with experience in the recruitment industry and those who'd like to get into it?
Yeah, by all means.
Okay. And so if anyone is interested in opportunities with either Select Offshore or Select Tech, how should they get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can add me on LinkedIn. So just search Mike Tann and Select Offshore, or you can send me an email. My email address is mike.tan@selectoffshore.com.
Okay. And for any of our listeners who are interested in exploring whether a non-exec or board advisor could work for you, as it's worked so well for Mike, please get in touch with me, Alison Humphries, alison@recruitmentleadership.co.uk. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
You've been listening to the Recruitment Leadership Podcast. If you enjoyed our podcast, please subscribe, review and share so that others can find the podcast too. We really appreciate your support. If you have any questions about the topics covered or wish to find out more about recruitment leadership, please email alison@recruitmentleadership.co.uk referencing the podcast. We're also on LinkedIn, where you can follow Recruitment Leadership and connect with Alison Humphries. Thank you for listening, and we hope you join us next time for another episode of the Recruitment Leadership Podcast.